Hello again, Broncos country.
Really excited to chop up some Broncos with you all this week.
Bourbon, Broncos, and no BS.
Favorite time of the week. We're not for the Raiders, Chargers, or Chiefs. So grab your brews in your fantasy league. We got that blue and orange blood that you bleed. The most loyal fans there ever could be. We are that mile high Broncos country.
Orange Weekly, fans, brews, and Broncos news. What's up, Broncos country? How you doing? We are back. Broncos football is back. We won a game. Just give me 10 seconds, guys. I don't want to hear that it was meaningless. No, it was meaningless. I know. We won a football game. Okay. How good was it?
You have 10 seconds. Go.
Yeah, we won. We won a game. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Orange Weekly, Bourbon, Broncos, no BS. Grab that drink, whether it's a beer, bourbon, wine, champagne, if you want to be really fancy, whatever you want. But just make sure, drink responsibly. But glad you're all here. Post your comments, post your questions, hit that share button for us. And we are here to talk with you, not at you. So we're back for a whole nother year of this. This will be year 6. And let's do it. So, John, I think this is your first official Bourbon Broncos No BS.
Yeah, I mean, sure, if you want to call it that. I've been on many now, but yeah, first official one for the new season, and it feels good to have football back in our lives. A big hole in all of our hearts is now being filled with football, albeit preseason, but that just means we're one step closer to the regular season, and we actually can talk about sports again.
Absolutely. Yep. Let's run down the list of people who are already joining us, already throwing down some comments. We've got John, Travis, Rob. Shout out to Team Puffball Rob. Jerry, Cindy's already here. Diorez is already here. Man, it's awesome to see you guys. Jesse, Daniel, already leaving comments. Man, people are pumped up. It's good to see. The 10-second rule was a pretty good cutoff point for where you should be celebrating a preseason.
Now I'm back to reality.
That's about as much as you get.
I am.
But we've got a lot to talk about, and a lot to as we transition into the Seattle game from Minnesota last week. Lots of interesting things to talk about on both sides of the ball, guys. I'm really excited to get into this.
So, do we want to start? Let's not start with the quarterbacks. I think we know that is a huge thing. We will get to the quarterback talk. I think one of the first things that we can really break down, the running back room. I think that's a really good place to start. I mean, how stacked are we there? I mean, Javonte Williams came out 2 first downs back to back. It was about 13 and then like about a 14 or a 15-yard gain.
Jared and I got to talk to a special guest who we won't reveal now, because we're still in the process of getting these football in July's turned out in the middle of August now.
In August.
Back end of August, actually. But we heard that Javonte Williams was getting a ton of run from the coaching staff, and for good reason. We saw him first live game action. It's really the only way you can evaluate a running back this time of the season is these preseason games. And he looked like the real deal. Obviously, grain of salt, you're taking it against Minnesota's number 2 defense. But, the rookie running backs, this is where it's their time to shine a little bit, is the preseason where they're really going to be able to go out there and look good. I think Williams more than lived up to his billing so far. What do you think, John?
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, this is the reason why we were all so excited when we took him. We didn't even care that we traded up to get this guy. I was stoked when we got him, and he proved it, obviously, preseason week 1. Again, grain of salt. We know there's still going to be a lot of Melvin Gordon going around. So not to get too excited about this guy early on, but I mean, my opinion, my belief is that this guy is going to be our future at running back beyond this season.
Yeah, totally. I think that's totally reasonable. Jared, welcome in.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm
so happy to be here,
guys.
Good thing everybody who took the over, by the way, in the group chat about how late Jared would be gets to pay off there. That's
I'm on time Jared time. So
I'm wondering if Jared took the over and waited that extra minute.
He did see our conversation.
Make that work.
I mean, look, a betting man knows when to throw in his money. So
true enough. Now, one note that has nothing to do with Jared, John brought up an interest in just a point today as far as our running back room. John in the comments, not John, our wonderful host. Adrian Killens signed by the Broncos, I think today. Comes over from the Eagles. 5'8", not a guy who is going to bowl anybody over, but real speed potential. So reinforcements for that running back room after Levante Bellamy and Mike Boone go down in that Vikings game. Maybe it can't body, but certainly has some really intriguing speed there. Back to Javonte Williams, Jared. What was your take in game action for him?
I mean, it's exactly what we were expecting. You never want to watch a game and see a disappointment in a second round, especially someone we trade up. And I think he did exactly what a lot of us were expecting him to do against they sat a few of their starters on defense, like John was saying, take it with a grain of salt in week 1. But you like to see him lowering his shoulder, getting into the hole, exploding out of the hole like he did in college, and not being afraid to take the contact against these NFL guys who, you like to say there's a huge step up from the NCAA, especially from North Carolina to the NFL, but he's not afraid to still lower shoulders into it. And somebody brought up too, my boy Freeman out there was running the ball very well too, right? So I like to see Freeman stick around for a little bit, but Javonte Williams obviously has that number 2 spot, if not a 1-2 punch locked up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my favorite run was the touchdown that got called back. Just him breaking out of the ankle tackles like we saw all over his college tape. And it's just, he did it again at the NFL level, and a run that didn't even count.
But back to the Freeman comment, Jared. I think he's making the team at this point with Boone, being questionable for week 1. I think that probably solidifies that we might be going into the season with 4 running backs. And Freeman, he looked really well yesterday, or I guess Saturday. So he actually his stats were better than Javonte Williams, which I was surprised to see after the game. They both rushed 5 times, and he just had a few more yards. So the average looked a little bit better. Now, again, take out that Javonte touchdown, and that changes things. So, but again, great to see that from Freeman, because I think we all like him.
Question here from Daniel. Sorry, Daniel. Any update on the injured Bronco on the opening kickoff? I can't remember who went down. It doesn't sound like we had any major injuries throughout the game.
It was Trey
no
Marshall.
one substantial.
Like he would miss a couple of weeks. Trey Marshall was the third safety going into this game, and his injury actually allowed Caden Stearns, the rookie, to come in and have a pretty decent game. A guy who you had heard up and down things about in those joint practices. One day he was doing really well. The other day he was getting picked on a little bit. I was really interested to see how effective he was in the run game. He was not afraid to run up and put his shoulder into a running back, and I was really impressed with his game. He kind of stood out to me as a rookie.
Yeah, 100%. And he's a 4th round pick, so not anyone we're super excited about going into this season, but potentially with him and I can't remember the name of the other safety we drafted also in the 4th round. As potentially being that long-term replacement for not Simmons, but
Jackson.
Sorry.
I think Stearns went out there and played the game he needed to be able to make this roster right off the bat. I think that he almost solidified his name on this roster based on that showing. I think he really did play very, very well for a 4th round pick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Jared, this one's for you. When do you start No Shave November?
So here's the unfortunate part. All I can grow is a mustache right now because I still have shave standards in the military.
Right.
So my mustache by the end of November makes me look like Pee Wee Herman. I don't think anybody wants to see that. I think we're just gonna stick around with no facial hair for now.
It's the blonde facial hair on the very, very white skin. It doesn't work for you, buddy.
It is a look. We can say it's a look.
It's a look.
It's a look. Okay, Facebook user, and I'm not sure why it's not sharing your name. Sorry for that, but yeah, PS2. I mean, is there anything
unbelievable
you can say other than just wow?
top rated cornerback in all the league for preseason. Granted, again, preseason, right? We're talking about it, but the top rated corner in all the league with his pick six. He had a couple of great batted balls. He's making breaks on. I mean, on the slant, his first batted ball, the first time they threw at him, his break on the slant was almost at the exact same time the guy. It was so quick. It was so reactionary. I loved it. I loved watching it.
Yeah. He 2 targets, 1 pass breakup, 1 interception return for a touchdown. What else is there to say?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can bring that performance every game, I mean, you're talking about the defense is already just so stacked, and to have that guy go out there and just bringing that kind of game is.
We already knew he was going to be the most polished corner in the draft, but you put him with this defensive coaching staff, whose specialty seems to be defensive backs. It's going to be a really special thing to watch him right out of the gate, and that's going to be really cool.
Yeah. The Alabama system that is specialty and defensive backs into our system, and there's no reason he's not going to succeed. I'm just wondering where he falls in the depth chart, and is he moving around the whole time? I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like they've played him literally everywhere on the formation, and they love that about him. They will put him in any time, anywhere. It sounds like the starter designation is a lot less important to them than just how much can we get him on the field.
Yeah.
I love this. I love this comment as David saying that, because with a guy like him, there's no such thing as a scheme fit for a guy who could literally play. And when we did our football in July with wait, did we post that one yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay, when we did our football with in July with somebody, we were talking about how he could literally play anywhere at any time, and he's excelling. It's amazing.
Good call on that, by the way. I also told them we were still churning those out, even though we're in mid-August, and did not spoil the guest either. But same guest we're talking about.
Yes.
You want to check those out when they're posted for sure.
Yeah. They'll be good. All right.
Okay.
This is the matchup I'm looking forward to right here.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
No, you had something to say, Kev. You go.
No. I was just going to bring it up.
All right. Well, let me play devil's advocate first and say there's a possibility he might not play. I mean, he's just coming back to practice for the first time today. And they've really been easing him in, especially with, as he said, he had a setback in his recovery from his leg injury. So to me, it would honestly be more surprising if he did play, if the coaching staff felt comfortable putting him in there the first, week after he's practicing on a Tuesday. But, he might. I would put chances more along the lines of he's probably not gonna. Now, somebody else play devil's advocate and say, if he does play, what do you expect?
I mean, so Justin Strnad is another one that I was looking forward to in the last game, and we didn't really talk about him, but I think he was playing pretty well.
I think he did play well, yeah.
I think Strnad is another name that I was looking forward to seeing, since we didn't get to see him at all last year. And really he stepped up, and that's what I want to see from Perrin Browning. I want to see him step up in that location too. I think our linebacking core is solid with the 4 guys that we got. Strnad, him, Alexander Johnson, and
Josie
Jewell.
Yeah.
Jewell was injured, right? Too. I think he was on the.
He's right. He also came back to practice just this last couple days.
Okay. Yeah, and we know what we get. We know what we get from Josie Jewell, and he was playing better towards the end of the season in that Fangio defense, which we really like to see. But I want to see Perrin Browning. That was the guy that when we picked him up, everyone was kind of like, well, and then when you look at his tape and you're like, wow, like he slipped, So I'm excited to see him.
And this is go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, we know that they're high on him. They're not going to rush him back. You're right. It's a Tuesday practice day he's coming back. And remember, it's a Saturday game, so it's not like a normal full week of practice he's getting. Yeah. So there's no reason for them to rush him back. We know he's going to make the team. So just because we don't get to see him as fans, yes, that's a little disheartening. But
Yeah.
It's okay. Doesn't
And
really matter.
And to this point, to Alex's point here, because this is a great point, the future really is strong. And between those two guys, what stands out to me most is athleticism. Both of these guys have crazy ability to cover space. Both of them are, we've been talking about lumbering inside linebackers in Denver for a long time now. We had Brandon Marshall, who is probably the most athletic guy there.
Yeah.
Do you guys think Todd Davis? I think Todd Davis was probably a little bit more bulky than Marshall. Anyway, now you're talking about having Stranad and Browning there, who are both insanely athletic guys. It's really going to be an exciting prospect when these guys, if they get on the field together at some point.
I mean, all the way around, I'm seeing a top 3 defense.
Mm-hmm.
The incredibly strong potential for a top 3 defense.
Right now, as
knock on wood, staying healthy, right? But we got depth. We got young players. We got depth. A lot of these players that probably wouldn't have seen really any playing time last year got some decent playing time because of our injuries. So, for being such
and we were still a top 10 defense.
Yeah,
we had probably the most injured defense. We definitely had the most money injured on the defensive side in all the league, and we were still a top 10 defense with what you could be considered the replacements at that point, right? I think there wasn't there one game we played with like no corners?
Oh yeah, the last 2 games.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it was really cool, and what Fangio's done to this defense is nothing short of amazing in that aspect, because he could throw whoever he needs to out there and get the job done. Now he has starting caliber, top NFL player caliber players at all levels.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for opposing offenses.
Yeah, and it's like what if these names that you're hearing like Draymond Jones and McTelvin Agim don't just keep blowing up practices? What if they start blowing up games? Like there's really, really tantalizing prospects there, as well as established guys. Jonathan Cooper, another guy who I think had a really good game against the Vikings. His name has been all over the mentions in practice. Mm-hmm. Purcell absolutely can be that anchor. John puts up a great point. And if they do find rotational snaps for Agim this year, we've heard he's been practicing at nose and at defensive end. It's, kind of an embarrassment of riches if even 2 or 3 of these guys pan out. And it sounded like maybe 4 or 5 of these guys are going to pan out. And it's going to be really exciting to watch this defense do its thing. Yep.
If there was a 2020 in a Facebook, one corner with no game or one game with no corners and one game with no QBs, what a season.
Amen to that. Yikes.
Love it.
Oh,
I love it.
And another good point by John, Andre Mintz, a name who kind of nobody was talking about until we had to talk about him in this Vikings game, because he was all over. He was in the backfield all the time. It's, like you talk about the edge depth now being really, really impressive. You still have Malik Reed. He's I don't want to say he's an afterthought because he's a really good third rusher, but you've got just up and comers at every level of this defense.
So we still got some time. I think they had to get the first cut today down to the roster size down to 85. The final roster, 53-man roster, does not need to get down until August 31st. But something to start thinking about, people, is when we're talking about, this many playmakers, who's gonna get the cut?
That's right. And just to run down those names for anybody who may not have seen, they did add, as we signed earlier, Adrian Killens, wide receiver, running back. Waived injured Bellamy, Devontae Dukes. He may end up on injured reserve. That may be a player we see back in some form or other on the practice squad. We'll see how that goes. Dion Sizer, Roysterman Ferris, favorite name on the roster. It's very sad to see him gone. Peter Colombi he was cut, as well as Lorenzo Neal Jr., legacy player in the NFL. I don't know if you guys remember Lorenzo Neal Sr., but it's a name from older than I'd care to admit. Let's say that.
Yeah.
And so, are you guys ready to talk about the offense yet, or do we have more defensive time?
I think. The bottom line for the defense is, get ready. These guys are going to be good.
And if we're going with Mike's comment here, it's a good transition, because as we're talking about the depth on defense, the depth in the wide receiver room,
offensive room,
it's going to make for some hard for decisions. Yeah. Tyree Cleveland may make the roster and he may not, but Trinity Benson is coming hard for a spot. You know,
Yeah.
what else? What else can we say about these wide receivers?
I mean, it's
do you
deep.
think there's a potential trade somewhere there?
I think if there's
you go with.
Sorry, go ahead, David.
Go ahead. Oh, I
was going to say, if there's any
Tim
candidate
Patrick out there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Patrick is the one of those top 4 that's going to be, because he's on a 1-year deal for very cheap, and he just seems like the one that they're probably not looking at long term, keeping around.
Well, here's the thing: trades don't happen pre 53-man cut.
No,
they don't.
No.
So you're looking at, if we're talking about 53-man, we have obviously Tim Patrick's, right? You have our top.
Yep.
I feel like our top 5, top 4 for sure are already established, right? Yep. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, and Tim Patrick definitely are making this team. After that, you have some questions, right? Like you said, I think Cleveland is probably one of those guys that gets cut with the way that everyone was playing. I know it's hard. Deontay Spencer, he's our number 1 kick returner right now, so it's hard to get rid of him. Trini Benson was playing amazing.
Yep.
Then you have Kendall Hinton.
Yeah,
right. Our
kicks. Was it Benson or Hinton? One of them was returning kicks this game. I can't remember, but I think it was Benson.
Benson was.
And
Benson and Cleveland both were.
I know Hamler has been doing it in practice too, so I don't know that Spencer's job is that safe.
Well, Hamler was definitely doing it in practice, but Spencer on the returning kicks last year was doing a very, very good job. It's not like it's one of those things where we got to pull him. I think they were trying different options out, right? It wasn't so much we need to find a quick returner. It's if we find someone else, it's good, but let's give Deontay Spencer some reps at receiver and to see what happens.
That's it. And I think at this point, if you're the coaching staff, you might just be looking at Deontay Spencer and saying 98% of what he does for the team is return kicks. Can we get, 80% of his production from somebody else who's already on the roster who we're going to keep and play at receiver also? To me, it seems like not super safe for Spencer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so the other thing too is, John, I'll get back to you real quick, but yeah, so it's really what's best for a team on special teams. Right. So this is what we're talking about, like either return or kickoff, right? Kickoff, punt.
Yeah. And that's, and that's who it's going to, this is a great point by Alex. This is who this final spot's going to go to, who can give you that special teams contribution and also give you upside on offense. Show you plus route running, plus speed, plus something.
Yeah.
I think Benson has done a really good job. Just, I think we saw it in this Vikings game, 2 touchdown passes, good route running too, not just, speed past a guy, but doing the right thing to put himself in the right position.
Yeah. And he just figured out how to get open in the end zone, the most important place on the field.
Yeah.
He did it twice.
We've been having so many problems with that the last several years, driving down the field, and then nobody can get open in the end zone. We can't, run the ball into the end zone. And so, that's a lot right there. When you can.
Now, here's my question from that though, because we basically had a lot of Hamler and a lot of Benson in this game. So does that bode better for Benson go in the regular season, or is that going to just be Cortland Sutton? And are we seeing the plays that we're going to see from Cortland Sutton in the regular season?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but it doesn't bode badly for Benson that he can do those things, or at least do those things against second stringers.
Right.
Because if you need somebody to do it against first stringers because Sutton's not there.
Right, and it comes back to the whole circle, right? As the head coach and as the GM, you're looking at all these players, right? We're so deep and very talented in so many positions. It's not like we can say like, oh, well, we have an extra couple gunners at receiver, or we have a couple offensive special team guys at receiver because, okay, let's keep 7 receivers, right? Let's keep 8 receiver, whatever it is. And then you look at the running back room and you're like, okay, well, now we got to keep 4 running backs. And then you look at the DB room and you're like, well, we kind of want to keep extra DBs, right? We know they could tackle on the special teams. Like, and now you're getting to this thing where like, okay, we already got a 53-man roster. We haven't even talked about quarterbacks. Yeah. So it gets to that point where I think this season is going to be probably one of the first seasons in a long time. Last year there was one cut that I think we all kind of were like, I wish we didn't do that. But then he came back, Kareem Jackson. But this year there's going to be that cut that we're going to be like, oh man, I really like that guy. I can't believe we kept him, and somebody else is going to pick him up, and we're going to regret it But at this point, we're so deep. I think we've made such a good roster in the last 3 years with our drafts and everything that's going on. We've made such a good roster around everybody else that I think we're in a good position this year.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Look at this. I put up Alex's bottom comment right here. This last comment, because good Lord, what a group of weapons. You got Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. You don't even have Noah Fant in there.
Right.
Or Albert Okwuegbunam.
Nope.
Okwuegbunam, I think actually is the right way to pronounce that. So we'll get further into this. But I think
hold on.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jared.
Are you gonna, if that's the way, are you gonna apologize for the way I was pronouncing it? And then
I will absolutely, because I'll apologize to you and to Albert because he deserves the dignity of having his name pronounced correctly. But good Lord, I mean, you could add 2 more huge guys to this goal line package, and you're right. This is still incredible, an incredible personnel.
Imagine the 500 game, a game of 500 with these 3. Just we'll line them up in bunch out on the right side, and then just play 500 and see what happens.
Not to mention the fact that Hamler can just take the top off any defense and be that
right.
Like
we got the speed threat.
Right, he has Tyreek Hill speed. It's just ridiculous. I don't know.
So now, Alex, you're killing us, man. You're doing a great job of leading us in the next. So now you're talking about tight end room. Right now, who are we going to keep in the tight end room?
You know, it's
you got Eric Alberto.
And we have Beck. We have Beck as our fullback, right? Are we going to keep a fullback for the season? Are we going to put him down at tight end like we have in the past?
4 running backs.
I mean, there's a lot.
We keep 3 running backs and keep Beck as the fullback.
I think they're going to put Beck in that kind of hybrid fullback tight end type position because I think they like that on certain packages and just having him around for that.
That's really something you can't really do with Alberto or Fant, I don't think.
Exactly.
I mean, you could, but I don't think they're comfortable with it.
No,
they're just
you want to give those
from the tight end position.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Austin Fort's a guy who, we kept hearing about in training camp last year before his injury is flashing. The guy can't even get reps now, maybe even in practice. I don't know if he's getting how much run he's even getting in practice these days. Alberto's, it sounds like he is recovering from his injury a little bit more and more every day. He might get playing time against the Seahawks. It's going to be really, really interesting.
Now, we haven't started, but this is a good transition.
Good segue.
Let's talk about how that line played. David, and I know David's you're a big fan of how we played the line this week. We moved some people around.
Yeah.
Muti was playing in some spots, and David, what's your breakdown of how we played the line and what you liked, what you saw?
I think we were in a really good position with Calvin Anderson. First of all, he started at left tackle. Which is his natural kind of position, the one that he's played most of his career. We're counting on him as a swing tackle, but already to me, and he looked a little bit better, more natural than Elijah Wilkinson did. I think it's going to be a little bit better situation there. We had Bobby Massey starting at right tackle, pretty solid performance from him, nothing to really complain about there. The guards were what was really interesting to watch there. You had Cushenberry start at center. I think he was playing well. But at guards, you had Moody. I don't know if Quinn Miners got any run with the first team. I don't believe so. But he certainly got a lot of action with the second team and third teamers, as I recall. Graham Glasgow is an excellent guard. I think he's a guy who you can just put in and count on. But Moody is a guy who has ridiculous strength, ridiculous play strength. And if he can iron out some of the technical issues in his game, which, you've got a coach like Mike Munchak, it's not going to take that long. You're going to have to come up with reasons to keep him off the field.
Right.
It's got the potential to go from an average offensive line to a above average to very good offensive line because he's still got Bowles to put in there. The best player didn't play. I'm excited for the potential. Again, grain of salt, second stringers, Minnesota, yada, yada. And I'm interested to see what Seattle does this week because they did not play a lot of their starters for very long in the first preseason game. We will see what their strategy is for the second one. It's interesting this year to just watch every team's strategy for preseason, cutting down from four games to 3.
Yeah.
How do they play their starters? How do they deal with their veterans? In Denver, we've got a really unique, quarterback situation going on. But how other teams are handling this is really going to be instructive for the future, I think.
So, I just got to imagine, if I'm the quarterback, I definitely want a solid line in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And that offensive line is, super strong. It's almost as strong as Centennial State Insurance Agency, who's just going to, protect you from whatever life throws your way. They got homeowners insurance, auto insurance, whatever you need. You definitely want to give them a call. They're going to be your offensive line. They're going to be your Garrett Bowles, and make sure that you don't get sacked from the blind side, right? Something happens. Hopefully nothing ever does, but if something happens and now you're on hold for 45 minutes with somebody in some other country that doesn't care about you because they're just waiting to go home for the day, you can call Centennial State Insurance Agency. You're going to have a dedicated insurance agent who knows you, knows your family, knows your situation. They care about you and your well-being, and they're going to help you out the best way possible. So, if you're in the Colorado area, you definitely want to give these guys a call. They will take care of you from day one. So again, Centennial State Insurance Agency, 303-838-0554.
Now, if Centennial State Auto Insurance or an insurance agency does not use the Garrett Bowles that you just used, let us be your Garrett Bowles. Do not miss the blindside tackle. I feel like they're doing a disservice to themselves.
Pretty good for the first show of the year, right?
Amen.
You know what?
Amen.
Hey, that's you set a high bar.
I did.
So
That's
really
the problem.
solid.
I should have saved that one.
Really
I'm
solid.
a little worried. You went a little too hard on the first show. That's
Yeah.
gonna be hard.
Oh
the
man,
side
love
Sperling
it.
joke from Glenn Hauser. Put that one up there because that's
Put Glenn's up.
Hold on.
because man alive. It's the next comment down. Anyway, Glenn also had a good comment. Do we see any sleepers making the OL? There we go. From this roster, Glenn, I don't know that they're going to have any room to keep a dark horse O lineman this year. I think they're going to have to keep dark horses at other positions.
I mean, listen to automatically backups that I guarantee are already making. Calvin Anderson, Quinn Myers, and Muti are all three backups.
Yeah,
and we're talking like 2 of those guys can go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That you need them to. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's to me, you've got just so much kind of diamond in the rough talent possibilities on this roster elsewhere at other positions that you may have to trim the O-line a little bit lower.
Got the Schlotman figure.
Who doesn't love Austin Schlotman? Do you guys watch him on Twitch ever? It's pretty fun.
Yes, he's amazing. He's so funny.
Yeah, he's pretty great. It would be an absolute shame because he kind of did have a rough game. And, even if he's not having a rough camp overall, it's the numbers game might crowd him out a little bit. I think they like Miners more. I think they like Moody more. It may be tough for Schlotman to stick here, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think there is potential there between Massey and Fleming because I feel like they are battling it out. Even though on the depth chart they have Fleming as the backup left tackle, I wouldn't be surprised if we only keep one of those guys. We have them both on a 1-year contract, and it basically can be cut pretty easily without much financial ramifications. So maybe we cut one of those guys to keep another guy like Schlotman or I don't know, one of the other guys that are there.
Yeah, it's such a deep team. Like it's like I said, every time we get into it, and I know we're riding the high of actually scoring more than 15 points in a game, right? And I understand that. I think we all get that, but we also are understanding that like the talent that we have around this team is so good. And this is a transition. This is going to be the transition. It's going to be the question that we've had for years. We've always had the talent. What are we doing with the quarterback spot, guys?
Yeah.
Like what's happening, right? So
absolutely.
And I'm gonna kick this off because I love quarterbacks. Love talking quarterbacks. The first thing I'm gonna say is actually no, Kev, go ahead. You're gonna.
Here's how I want to start this. As we look at the quarterback battle, one of my concerns is Pat Shurmur. Can he call a good game for whoever the quarterback is? How many times last 2 years, we get down by a little bit before halftime, and we completely abandon the run game. Now we're talking about how good of a run game we have. You know, the depth there is fantastic. And it works, you know, the play action runs really well once you get that run game going. You know, if you abandon that too early, you know, look, bottom line is we're not going to win 9, 10, 11 games this season based off of either quarterback's arm. It's just not going to happen. If we are consistently going back to relying and just, you know, leaving out the run game, abandoning that and going to you know, trying to make some deep passes over and over and over again, that's where you're going to see mistakes being made, interceptions, turnovers, sacks. Things are going to get ugly. So my question is, whoever's picked, and I'm kind of leaning lock right now, but whoever it is, do we have an offensive coordinator that is going to call games in an intelligent way that's going to put us in a position to win?
We'll see.
Keep in mind, Kevin, Shurmur last year was his first year with us. He is a well-respected coach in the NFL.
Oh, I agree, but
certainly as a coordinator.
But
we had no preseason or off-season really last year, and we lost our number one wide receiver, Cortland Sutton, in week 1?
Sure.
So,
3, but he also runs a pretty complicated offense, and everybody having a second year in this offense is going to benefit not just the quarterbacks, but the receivers, the running backs, the O-line, everybody. So,
and it was
Rich right here. Yeah, and Rich, I should have ended on this. What we saw, and yes, we were up the entire game. There was no need for us to ban the run game, but the scheme that we saw is exactly what we needed to succeed, especially with Drew Lock. So I will give him credit there. I hope that what we saw against Minnesota is, you know, the kind of mindset Pat Shurmur is in this year after he's learned, you know, from his first year in that position. You know, everyone's coming back for the second year with the playbook, so on and so forth, everything you're saying. So, yeah, exactly.
You know,
I think to be a little bit of an offensive coordinator on the offensive coordinator side.
Go ahead, Jim.
And I've been wrong a lot. Right. This is we're on our 6th offensive coordinator in the last 3 years, and I have loved all of them. So here's the problem that I have is that there is an equal balance between an offensive coordinator coming in and expecting to implement a playbook with no offseason, having a quarterback who he has really no previous knowledge of what his strengths and weaknesses are, especially with no offseason. And I'm going to keep blaming this no offseason. As you saw it go along towards the end of the season, the playbook got better. The reads got better. Drew Lock got better. The whole thing kind of started falling into place. The problem is that Shurmur came in not knowing what Drew Lock's strengths were and what his weaknesses were. So a lot of the times he's throwing in, like David said, a very complicated offensive scheme as far as different reads. You know, complicated reads that sometimes take a little bit of time to get through, and he didn't really have the time a lot of times. And honestly, Drew Lock at the time was not a good reader. He was a 1-2, tuck the ball kind of guy. What we saw against Minnesota was much better, but it also helps. And again, devil's advocate on this side, it also helps that he had about a year and a half to throw every time he went to go throw the ball.
Yeah.
That deep ball, the third read to Jerry Jeudy when he ended up dancing his way for an extra 15 yards. That was, he had I could have swore he had 15 seconds in the pocket. When I watched it, I was like, am I watching this in slow-mo? How is this happening? Because it was his third read. He got to his third read, found the wide open guy, which worked out very well. I'm glad he went through his reads without getting pressured. Are we going to see that in the NFL? Or are we going to see that in regular season? I don't know. But there's a combination. It's not always on Pat Shurmur, right? And I think Drew Lock got better. I think Shurmur started worked with Drew Lock a little bit more to understand his strengths, weaknesses. That's why I'm excited to see. And that's why I also think, going back to the quarterback conversation, Drew Lock has this job. There was a comment earlier that I mentioned, and I'm actually interested to see this, kind of like the Saints did, where I would not be surprised if we put Teddy Bridgewater out there in certain situations to see if we could get the scramble, to see if we can get the rollouts a little bit better than what we see with Drew Lock.
I don't know. I think Drew Lock's better at it, honestly.
I think, yeah.
I think he's the more athletic of the two anyway. So to me, that scenario doesn't seem terribly likely. But we're just fans. We're not prognosticators. We don't have crystal ball. Well, not that you guys know about. Anyway, I'm just excited. I don't know the answer to this question that Kevin puts, and it's a good question. But to me, it's just one of those things where at this point in the season, if I don't know, let's just go with optimism. Let's just say, it's going to be better than it was last year.
No, there's no reason not to feel that way after that game. 33-6.
Right.
You can't feel bad about that.
Right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. What are we supposed to do?
And what we have the sixth, and for what it is, I mean, the sixth easiest schedule this year, something like that.
Well, right. Exactly. Who
we're
knows
still in the AFC
be?
West, and we're still playing two teams.
Right.
So I mean, for quarterback arms
compared to last year, it was like the fifth hardest schedule in the league or something like that. So I mean, we do have some things going for us this year. A lot of things to be positive about.
That's true.
I think I'm not seeing any real reason, and maybe somebody in the comments has argument for Teddy to be the starter, but I just am not seeing any real reason to say we definitely should start Teddy over Drew.
I'm not going to
say. Let's see this week.
Yeah, and I think if Drew is able to put a performance over Teddy like he was, marginally speaking, in the Vikings game, I think the competition's over. But this is a point I've been making as many times as I can on Twitter. I think our quarterback floor this year is just so much higher, and I think that was really what stood out to me while I was watching both of the quarterbacks. Even if Teddy is the one who goes in there and it is just the safer throws, there was that one rollout where he had the deep over route open, and he threw it shorter to the tight end, who still, with a yards after catch picked up 15 or 16 yards, but he had the deep over route and he had to throw that. You got to throw that ball.
Absolutely.
And he didn't. And that's just who Teddy Bridgewater is. But you're looking at a guy who's not going to throw a ton of picks, hopefully, not going to turn the ball over, hopefully. With this offense, both of these guys have the chance to succeed. And if one of them has to sit over the other one, it's not going to be like last year when you've got Jeff Driscoll coming in to take significant reps. It's going to be somebody who's competent enough to lead an offense to, not give a game away.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think whoever the starter is at the beginning of the season, so Kevin and I discussed this in the post-game podcast a little bit, but I don't see a scenario, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, guys, if you guys see this differently, where they name Bridgewater the starter and he's struggling the first 4 games, and they say, okay, now we're going to put Locke. And I think most people are kind of expecting it to go the other way around. Locke goes in, maybe he struggles, and now we put Bridgewater. Even in that scenario, with our schedule, with our QB talent this year over last year, I still see a 10-win league. Even if we go, I don't know, 0-2, 0-3, maybe 0-4 is stretching it. But there's still the possibility to get to 10 wins here with a Bridgewater change. But, yeah, I mean.
In a normal year, I would see where you're coming from. But looking at our schedule, the way it's constructed now, if you lose those first few games, if you lose 3 or 4 games out of the first 5, you're going to have to beat some pretty gosh darn good teams to come up with some 10 wins the rest of the season.
If we lose 2 of the first 3 games, there's going to be a lot of questions.
It's
Giants, Jags, and Jets.
If you're not winning 2 out of those games, I don't know how you're going to get to 10 wins unless something dramatic happens on some other side of the roster.
I guess my point there is Bridgewater is a good enough quarterback to get us to 10.
I see what you say, and yes, I think you're right. Yeah,
I think so.
And maybe we squeak out wins in those first 3 games, and it's a defensive struggle, and we win because of defense. And now we replace Locke because he's just not playing to the level that we want him to. We have the QB talent this year, I think, to say that we should be at least a 10, hopefully a 10. That's
right.
Here's the bottom line, Alex. I think here's the bottom line. We take care of the football, and you look at the turnover percentages for both Bridgewater and Drew. They're not good. They're not good at all. Can we fix this problem? Can we get on the positive side of the turnover ratio? If we can, there's no reason for us to not win 10, 11 games. And, maybe a surprise win against Kansas City being one of them or something. You know what I mean? Like, the defense is there. The places are there. The talent is there. We have to protect the football on defense or on offense, and score some points.
Yeah.
That's bottom line there.
Yeah, I want to get back to Chris's thing, but the quarterbacks isn't what really wins games. I mean, like Tampa Bay shut down Kansas City based on their defense. Right, and we play them twice a year. We have more knowledge on them than I think a lot of other teams do.
There's certainly no reason for this team to be intimidated by anybody in our division, and that includes Patrick Mahomes. And they know it. I think they know it.
Absolutely. So I want to go back up to this question.
I mean, even outside of the Super Bowl last year, he's he's beatable. He is incredibly talented. If you play smart against him, he's beatable.
Sure. Every quarterback is.
Every quarterback is.
Yeah.
There's no quarterback that can single-handedly take across. Yeah, I know. I'm not. I'll get to Glenn's here in a minute. Okay. I want to go back to Chris. I want to go back to.
And we talked about this actually.
We talked about Caden Stern a little bit. And I want to mention it more because I feel like it was underrated. Caden Stern was kind of somebody that came in. We drafted him from Texas. Who good plays football coming out of Texas? Nobody, right? So as we go forward, we're going to see Caden Stearns. I think he showed out really well in camp. You saw his name a lot. You saw not only that, but you saw other players talk, like the way that they talk about Caden Stearns is really cool. And just knowing like how they're talking so highly of him, especially in that DB room, they think that he's going to be that guy. They're going to be someone they can trust. I think that really creates a locker room experience. I think we're going to see a lot more Caden Stearns this year.
Yeah. And have you guys heard anything bad about him in camp? Because I haven't. Maybe I missed
Absolutely
it.
not.
I've heard, I heard he had a couple kind of a rough days again, joint practices against the Vikings. But that's the negative, the one.
Gotcha. Well, he showed up in the game. That's
exactly.
Game day is all that matters.
Right. Okay, I just saw one that talked about Jamar Johnson. Some people he said people like Jamar Johnson over Stearns. Was that based on the game?
Post-draft. I think that's post-draft analysis that he's talking about as far as when we picked them both up in the same draft. And everybody was thinking about Johnson more as a guy who would get more run initially than Stearns. And Johnson, I think he was in COVID protocol. Yeah. COVID protocols, I think, for Johnson kept him away for a little while. I think now he's started to practice again. But the last thing I've heard about him was from Coach Fangio, and that was when he came back to practice, and Coach said he was, quote, behind, unquote. So, yeah, he's got some work to do, a little catch-up work. He may see some action in this upcoming preseason game. I think he came back a little bit before Browning did, so they may feel more comfortable putting him out there in some game action.
Yeah, he was activated last week, so I think we're going to see him this week. You would assume, anyways.
I mean, at this point, that they could probably keep both of them. But again, as we look at that, the total roster, how do we keep? We could probably keep both of them. Thinking Kareem Jackson's, on his last year. I don't know. It's such a difficult.
Yeah. It's an unenviable position there in this year, but it's a good problem to have.
Well, I think with that, then we're keeping 5 safeties with Trey Marshall, right? Who got injured on, I think, the first play of the game, which sucked. Or we're cutting a 4th round pick, which is hard to do.
Yeah, right.
In the first year.
We'll see.
Or we keep 5 safeties. I mean, it's just.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then where do you cut it from other places? It's just it's
so 3 running backs instead of 4. I mean,
that's it.
Yeah,
that's it. Well,
I mean, our practice squad is probably going to be better than the 0-16 team that goes this year. Like at this point, it's kind of how you got to look at it.
So let's transition, guys. Let's talk, and as we kind of wrap up maybe a little bit here, let's start to talk a little bit more about what we really want to see in the Seattle game coming up. What more? And I think obviously we can all say we want more clarity from the quarterback battle. So I think we can probably skip over that. Or if if you have something specific that you want to see there. But obviously I think we all can agree we want to see that, right?
Yeah.
Well, beyond that, do you see, based on this game, I feel like Fangio is the type of coach who wants to name his quarterback early. Do you think we go into week 3 of preseason without a known starter for week 1?
Only if they both do badly. Only if they both throw like 1 or 2 picks. Only if it's the kind of separation where both quarterbacks had a mediocre to bad day, and there's just not enough. One had a less bad day than the other to say, because at that point, what are you rewarding if you're the coach? You're giving that crown of a job based on your performance was not as bad as the other guys. And that's not, I don't think that's if they have to do it that way, they will, but I think they'll avoid that if at all costs.
Yeah. I think if we have the same outcome and Locke and they both do really well because they both did really well against Minnesota, I think he's naming Locke the starter after next week.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion, obviously.
Even if it's close, like let's say they don't both do poorly, if it's close again, I think that's Locke.
Yeah.
I mean, you go with the incumbent.
Right.
I'm so sick of these quarterback battles, guys.
I know. I get it.
I think last year was the only year since Super Bowl that we didn't have a. Yeah, I think last year was since Super Bowl. Last year was the only year we didn't have a quarterback battle, and we come into another one. So there is something to say to not naming somebody if they both do well, and even decent, right? If they both do decent, not naming someone until right before, and really it'll be the media naming who it is, because what's going to happen is we're going to come out of preseason week three preseason. We're going to go into camp and we're going to go into practice, and Locke's going to get all the first snaps, and he's going to be like, yeah, okay, Locke's our starter. Like, obviously I can't hide that anymore. But there is a level of if they both play very well this week, you don't announce anything until after, preseason week 3 to give, the who are we playing first? The Giants, kind of like a up in the air, like they can't really study us yet, an idea of who we're playing. But here's the problem is there's way too much attention. There's way too much media around our practices. I mean, everybody across the, social media is a hell of a thing nowadays. There's too much media across the rest of the world to understand that we know who's starting. Like, I don't think it's really a question. I don't think it's a question across the NFL circles that Teddy Bridgewater is going to be a backup in Denver.
Yeah. No.
But
I mean,
I should say no to that question.
Yeah, I
and then Keith, welcome to the show with this asshole comment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ESPN. They don't have the budget. They just paid the Manning brothers a ton of money. They gotta recycle those graphics. So yeah, you're gonna.
I swear to God, if I see that carousel one more time,
you're gonna see the carousel there. It's gonna be there. Don't even. It's not a doubt.
And what's going to happen is the second Lock goes down and Bridgewater gets in there, they're like, get the carousel ready. Get the carousel ready. Get the carousel.
I think it's the single one thing that they get most excited about for the Broncos to talk about.
They got to be.
Right. Yeah.
Spot on, Richie.
And Morris makes a good point here too. They're not going to consult the press to make.
I'm not saying they're consulting the press. I think the problem is it's no longer something you can hide. It's no longer going into pre-camp or going into camp post. Used to be fourth, but now third game of the preseason. Obviously, whoever's getting the number one starter reps, whoever's getting reps with the number one guys, is going to be the starter.
Right.
It's not something you can really hide anymore and be like, "Hey, media, don't say shit." All right, like don't tell anybody that this guy's getting the number one start. It's social media is too much of it's too much.
Yeah, I realize I opened a can of worms there going to the third week of preseason with the quarterback situation. But my gut feeling is we're gonna know who the starter is for week 1 of regular season going into that third preseason game.
Right. Yeah, they sure do. Yeah, every practice they count that at this point. All right, guys. What do you think? So for me, I want to see. There's 2 vets I want to see. That's Cortland Sutton and Bradley Chubb. Are they healthy enough to? I mean, does the coaching staff decide to play them at all? Because I feel like if they're going to play in preseason, it's going to be this game.
Yep.
So that's what I want to see. Do they get any action? How do they look? Or do they just get saved for the regular season opener?
I would say get 1-2 drives in this game. Yep. I would also say the same for Vaughn, but he's on baby watch. Probably not traveling with the team. So you might see him a little bit in the third preseason game, just again to get him a couple reps. But that's kind of what I'm expecting is just let him pad up, go out there, hit some guys for a little bit, and then you're done. But that's, I think, across the board, what you're going to see from a lot of the starters is first quarter, maybe a little bit more, but past that, no.
Yeah, for sure.
I am excited to see what they do. It sounds like Bradley Chubb is while he's been working really slowly back into it all, when he is out there, he's been doing phenomenal. And so I want him to go out there and get his feet under him a little bit before game one for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hate to play devil's advocate with you guys, but I wouldn't be surprised if neither of them play at all this preseason.
Me neither. Yeah.
With one less preseason game, there's less, to look at other guys that are on the cusp of making the team, and for guys, especially guys coming back from injury potential guys, and guys that they're going to make the team that we don't have to worry about, like our star players. Like,
yeah,
I don't know what the point is to see him in the preseason. Like, what does the coaching staff really need to see him except for getting those real time?
That's all it is.
Of course, it's important.
That's all it is. And I'm saying like 1, maybe 2 drives at the most.
Which is
I know for their benefit, not the coaching staff's. It's just, hey man, put your pads on, go out there, hit somebody for real, in a game setting.
Yeah.
And now you're done. Okay, good job. Yeah.
I'm with John on this one because I don't think we're going to be playing some of these starters. I wouldn't be surprised if we have more sitting next game than we did this game, just because of that reason, right? We just talked for almost an hour about how deep our roster is and how difficult it's going to be able to discern between one player or another. And I think you need to get those guys as many snaps as possible to be able to prove themselves. And again, a great position to be in preseason, right? A great position to be in where we're like, man, we got some athletes. It's not one of those like, oh, we're going to have to go find somebody. It's, oh my God, we're going to have to cut somebody and then they're going to get picked up by another team. We're going to regret it. Right. Yep. So I think these next 2 games are going to be that. I wouldn't be surprised to see more people sitting.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, it's a good point. I guess we will find out 8:00 Saturday night, boys. Who's up for a late night special? What do you think?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
don't forget, we'll be live at halftime. We have the halftime hash for every Broncos game. So as soon as halftime starts, you already check your phones. I know you do. Don't lie to me. I do it. So just go to Facebook. We're live. Join us there. There's no need to listen to the announcers on TV. They don't know what they're talking about anyway. The halftime people. So come join us over here at Orange Weekly for the halftime hash. This show, Bourbon Broncos No BS, every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. We are back for the season. We are excited to be here, and thanks for everyone who's showing up tonight. Post-game podcast, that'll be coming out here soon. As we get closer to the season, we also got the pre-game podcast. We also have other shows when we get closer to the start of the season. Orange Weekly After Dark. We're going to have articles. You can check out our website, BroncosOrangeWeekly.com, for the latest show, podcast, and articles. Also some About Us information, some cool things there. Yeah, that's I think that's about it in a nutshell. We're bringing it strong this year 6, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
Quick couple last answers for questions. Curious thoughts on the outside linebackers. Touched on this a little bit earlier. Again, in good position there with Reed, Cooper, Mintz as your depth there. If you're looking for 3 guys past the top 2 to keep there, those would be my 3. Please sit Hamler, save his hamstrings. Totally agree on that. Those speed guys, you got to keep those hammies healthy. Any bold predictions for a breakout performer against Seattle? I don't think this is going to be a bold one, but I'm going with my boy McTelvin Agim Sosa. He is healthy. He is practicing again. Number 95 is going to get out there and he's going to bat some balls around. He's going to make some plays. That's it. That's all.
I'm going with Stranad this week. I think he had a good game this last week, but I think this one maybe we actually see like his legit skills in coverage.
Nice.
I'm not saying he's yeah. Well, how much time do you think PS2 is going to? Yeah.
So here's the thing. He left practice a little early today due to some minor lower extremity soreness is what they said.
Right.
So I'd love to see him more. Just go out there and just let him play, but I don't know if we want to risk that.
Let's keep those lower extremities feeling good.
Let's keep our cornerbacks healthy this year, for God's sake.
Yeah,
oh my goodness, please.
But I am excited to watch that guy play. I really am.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm super intrigued to see if Baron Browning plays, and if he doesn't play this week, I'm really excited to see him play next week. I just want to see him in action. I want to see what he can do. A lot of talk about how good he plays, and I want to see him at the NFL level. I want to see what he does at the NFL level. So I hope he plays this week, but if he doesn't, then we'll follow on with that.
Very good. All right. Well, there's only 2 words left to say, boys. I think we've said it all except these last 2 words. What do you think?
Oof.
Do it.
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Take care, everyone. See you next week.
Do what I like, yeah, I do what I like, yeah, I do what I like. Sipping goose, sip is right, and I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, cause I know I'm the show. In the zone, here I go, in the zone, here I go, in the zone, here I go, yeah, they know I'm a pro.